Joan had an opportunity that was unknown to me. In other words, I met with somebody from, of all places, Ingram Micro, and said, if you need help in Buffalo, you got to call this person. So shortly after meeting Joan, of course, she focuses on Me Inc. or branding. What are you going to do for branding yourself? And really, I spent some quiet time, fast as it was, to sit down and focus on those items, being CEO of your own corporation. The challenge I had coming into the workforce in 2008 is, up until then, I had only two employers in my entire life. One, which I thought was my career job out of college, and then my next one, which I thought was going to be my career job for the rest of my life. And after you go through that, you just don't know enough about yourself because you base it on your previous employment, and it certainly doesn't necessarily mean it's successful in the future. And I think the program that was offered in Joan's overtures about knowing yourself and where you want to go, frankly, made that possible. It really kind of shattered, hey, let go of what you thought you did right. It's time to a little bit reinvent yourself and rebrand yourself now. And I took that to heart. Joan, I think regardless of the breadth of person coming through the door or their experience, she recognizes that all the people coming through there, similar to a hospital, are sick. They need a little help. And her approach to each one is the same. It really creates a structure for you to kind of cling on to and then start to rebuild. And I'll give you an example. If you're going to redefine your career in terms of your disc profile, well, you have to know what your disc profile looks like. If you're going to base it on what perhaps your branding looks like in the future, you better rebrand yourself compared to what got you your first job or your last job, because the job market is always changed and dynamic. And I think the structure that Joan presented allowed that to happen regardless of your age or experience, or quite frankly, your go-forward plan. Joan was, again, instrumental in bringing my focus back to who I am today. In other words, not that person that was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And frankly, it's a hard process to believe in, because you think you're all grown up and you're really not. So one of the things she did was just slow me down long enough to focus on what I need to look like going forward when I'm presenting myself to someone else, because they don't know me. And the biggest challenge I had was, of course, I was in sales management, and it was real easy to talk about myself in terms of what I've done or what I'm capable of, but what am I going to do for that next person, that next role? And if you didn't slow down enough to use some of the tools that were presented by Joan, you might miss some of the most important steps going forward. I came to Joan with a resume already done. I wasn't planning on using a cover letter, and probably an assumption was, I have all these contacts, why do I need much more? And I relied on that. My contact base over time became exactly the foundation of using some of those other things that then became useful, a more polished resume, a more focused resume, a more how do I want to say this, appropriate resume for going out into the job market in 2008, as opposed to, hey, I already have a great job and I don't really need to work on this. So between the focus on the resume and some very, I'll say, mature discussions with Joan and what I wanted to do based on going forward, that came together with the network, that network base I had, and we really stitched those things together through Joan's approach. Choosing You Inc. never even crossed my mind, because it takes everything out of context. I thought I was already employable. And until you break it down into the steps that employers are looking for and think about it from their perspective, you might be really off track. So the You Inc., first of all, is a process that brought it around 180 degrees to what are the employers looking for, and I think it's value. When you get all said and done, it's not about selling yourself to an employer. It's remembering that you have some strengths and opportunities to offer any potential employer, and you really have to match that with the employer's needs, right? Otherwise, you don't have a good fit. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how much they need you, but if it's not what you both need, then you need to move on. So You Inc. kind of reminds you of that too. It's your brand, it's your choice. Take control of a job. You better know why you're taking the job, and you better know, what does it mean to my resume if I leave the job. Starting the process of career reform or redefining yourself is really a humbling experience, and I would say you really have to be I use the word tenacious, or recognize that there is a little bit of ability to cope with rejection along the way, because you're really trying to find out who maybe the new you is. You got to look at it from that perspective. You're not what you used to be. And the people that you're meeting the first time really need to know who you are today and where you're going. You got to meet them where they're at. And I think my advice to anybody coming onto the market is, don't think what you have coming into the market is that valuable. You need to find out. And that only comes through asking intelligent questions, doing your homework, being well prepared, and being, frankly, better presented than anyone else on the market.